Hey gang, we are in Wickenburg, Arizona right now at Happy Trails Power Sports Rentals of Arizona. And this is the beast that we're going to be renting today. It's a Polaris RZR. Actually have a couple of these in our Wisconsin place. Maybe you'll have to get one for out here, but for today we're going to be renting from Sean, who is the owner here. And great people, I've got to tell you, just great people here. He was kind enough to just reserve this thing for me for the whole day if I want. Just fantastic people here, and the whole crew. I tried to work with the people where I live in Carefree, a place called Time to Ride AZ. A guy named Josh completely blew me off. Talk about snobs. Don't go there. I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, we're here. We're going to actually head out about 6 miles that way on 60. And then we're going to head into the mountains. Probably about 6 miles, a curvy. We're going to get into a wash. I tried to get my Ram truck in there. I couldn't. That's why I'm renting this. And this is the story about the Wickenburg Stagecoach massacre. Happened in the 1800s. Quite a story. Complete wipeout of the Stagecoach, except for there was one survivor who told the story. So we're going to get into it. So we'll pick it up on the trail, and I want to thank Shannon Hendricks for this story, who suggested the Oatman story also, if you remember. That was another good one. So all right, I'll see you out on the trail. All right, guys, we are on the dusty trail. Got a GPS heading on where we're going, and it's a good thing I've got this. There's a lot of washes we're going to have to go through, so I'll show you a little bit of it coming up as we get farther in. All right, gang, we are out here. We made it. We made it down the dusty trail, the dusty wash, I should say. And the vehicle did pretty good. Pretty good. So we're about, I'm going to say, about a 10-minute walk, according to the GPS, away from where the site is, that away. So I thought we would park it here and walk the last part of it together instead of driving right up on it, and we can discover it together. And on the way I can tell you the story. This is such a beautiful area. Look at this, so calm, serene, wild and untamed. And we should try to put ourselves back in the day 1871 it was, the morning of November 5th. There was a stagecoach coming out of Wickenburg here called the Concord. It left town around 7 in the morning and it headed west through the washes, these washes outside of town. Final destination, San Bernardino, California. Can you imagine, guys, going on a stagecoach through this country, bouncing along all the way to San Bernardino? We would be complaining right now getting in our car on the highway. Oh, that's a so many hour drive. Well, I guess it would be an adventure. Could be fun, right? Beautiful country, beautiful weather most of the time. There were 7 passengers. The passengers included members of the Wheeler expedition, along with others from Prescott, Arizona. Now, the Wheeler survey was carried out from 1872 to 1879. This was one of the 4 great surveys conducted by the U.S. government after the Civil War, primarily to document the geology and natural resources of the American West here. So we'll talk about the people. Now, there were 3 guys associated with the Wheeler expedition that were on that mission directly, the workers, if you will. Starting with the cartographer, Peter M. Hamill. And then we had a surveyor, William Salmon, on that team, the 3-man team. And there was a journalist from Boston. His name was Frederick Wadsworth Loring. Very interesting guy. He was on quite an adventure, 22 years old. He was a Harvard graduate. He had already, imagine at 22 years old, he had already a novel that was published, a book of poetry. Also, he was working as a correspondent for Appleton's Journal at the time, and he was here to cover the Wheeler expedition's progress. There was a civilian army paymaster named William Kruger, and the 3 from Prescott were Charles S. Adams, Frederick Schoholm, and a lady of the night, a woman named a lady of the soiled doves, I should say, Molly Shepard. And the stage driver, his name was John Dutch Lance, Lance. Now, it was about an hour after they left from Wickenburg here, we're about 6 or 7 miles outside of town, and they came upon this wash that we've been driving in, and up ahead here, in fact, I'm going to bring you over to the wash. This is the wash, because we're at the base of a hill, and that's where the higher ground, the ambush attackers were. Let's go over here and take a look at the wash. Now, this is where they were driving, and it's quite sandy. It's not sand and gravel. I can tell you that it's very, I think I'd have a hard time with my Ram truck because everything sinks down. So I'm trying to imagine the stagecoach wheels, the horses, and maybe it was firmer back then because it wasn't. Maybe this is getting ground up by all the traffic from the 4-wheelers. But if you look at this is kind of the natural road of the time, and I'm pretty sure this is the same wash that they were traveling from that direction. So imagine coming from that direction and you are headed that way, and just about up ahead here to the left, if you look up there, and I'm going to parallel to the left here, come back here. If you see there's this slight rise. It looks like it goes up 100 feet, maybe a little more, this big hill. And right where this slope comes down, you can see it sloping right in the center of the screen, coming down to the right. That is where the ambush happened. You can see that the wash over there converges with the base of that hill. That's where we're going. And if you look up there, right up there, say where those little trees are there, if you can see, that is where a whole bunch of Yavapai natives were, called Indians at the time. And they were up there waiting for the stage to come. And when the stage came, they started shooting. And the first thing they did is they shot the first 2 horses, and they started shooting the 3 guys that were up on the buckboard there. And they were sitting ducks. They really did not have a chance. The driver, Dutch Lance Frederick Loring, was up there. He was inside most of the time, but he wanted to get some fresh air, and there was another guy up there, and they of course were hit first, shot down almost instantly, killed. Well, they didn't die right away, and that's when the attackers closed in. The gunfire continued, and the coach was hit over and over and over. Now, William Kruger and Molly Shepard somehow they got away. Now, we're going to talk about this. I have a letter that Kruger sent, I think, to one of the Army commanders, and documenting, and I'm going to tell you his testimony. It's unbelievable. But somehow he crawled away he played dead along with Molly. Molly was pretty shot up. And they probably crawled anywhere in this area to this area that we're standing right here as they made their escape. And of course, Wickenburg is back that way. So that's the way they had to go. So it was quite a bloody scene here. One of the passengers was scalped, and sadly, I will say, Molly did get back, but she would die of her injuries shortly after getting back. She was conscious. She had said just before she died, she said that, hey, these were Mexican bandits. They were dressed as Indians to throw off investigators. And in fact, there was a Mexican gang that was working here, but I think it was pretty much confirmed that it was Yavapai. They were wearing soldiers' pants and all kinds of weird stuff, and there was some revenge stuff going. There was big revenge stuff going on. So let's get back on the dusty trail here. Keep walking. So peaceful here. So there was an investigation. U.S. Army General George Crook, who was very famous, he was in charge of the territory at this time. And he had a very famous career. That's a whole separate story. Nelson Miles would replace him. But the attack here was generally blamed on the Yavapai warriors, who were sometimes mistakenly called Apache Mojaves, from the nearby Date Creek Reservation. Same as the Oatmans guys, and the Oatmans, that was down by Yuma, not close to here, relatively speaking. So it was believed that it was the Date Creek tribe that came here, or the band, and they wouldn't stop there. The following March, some of these same people tried to assassinate George Crook, General Crook. So General Crook finally had enough of all this, so he sent out an expeditionary force of cavalry, and they trailed the perpetrators, and they caught up with them at Burrow Creek, and there was a standoff, a big fight. and about 40 of the natives were killed. It was really all of this that ultimately led to the forcible relocation to the San Carlos Apache Reservation. So why was the stagecoach attacked in the first place? Nothing much was taken. Even the surviving animals were left here. That's not typical. Maybe it was the Mexicans, but I think it was the Yavapai payback mission. 7 months before, there were 144 Apache who were killed in the Camp Grant massacre outside of Tucson, so it may have been from that. Apache may have participated, who knows? Anyway, all kinds of conspiracy theories. You know, we always have those people, Molly did it. It was all Molly and Kruger, and they did it, and it's all manufactured, and they took the money, and they were spotted in San Francisco, and they got married, and, you know, anything to sell a book. So you're going to hear a lot of stuff. But as I always say, guys, this stuff, these stories are sometimes 50% accurate. You get them as much documentation as you can, and then you piece it together, and maybe it's 80% right. You don't know. You just... Now I'm going to read to you this letter from William Kruger actually it was to a newspaper man. And it was December 9th, 1871. And I think the newspaper was in New York. It says, listen to this. Dear sir, I am pleased to be able to give you an account of the death of my friend Loring, who was well known to me and whose ultimate untimely death is deeply regretted by me. He left Fort Whipple near Prescott, Arizona on Saturday, November 4th, in the best of health and spirit, and I was with him. To be sure, the stage was rather crowded, but being all such good temper, we had a real nice time. Loring, being the most lively of us all, anticipated a speedy return to his friend in the east. Well, he retained his inside seat until we reached Wittenberg. It was Sunday morning, November 5th, 1871, when after leaving there, he preferred to have an outside seat, to which I most decidedly objected. But he insisted on being outside for a short time. Now, I had 2 revolvers, and he had none. In fact, no arms whatsoever. He rejected my offer of a revolver, Loring did, saying at the time, my dear Kruger, we are now comparatively safe. I have traveled with Lieutenant Wheeler for nearly 8 months and have never seen an Indian. Well, we rolled out about 11 a.m. when the fatal attack was made. The first warning I had was the warning cry of the driver, who shouted, Apaches! Apaches! At the same moment, the Indians who lay concealed fired the first volley, killing poor Loring, the driver, and the other outside passenger, Mr. Adams. They killed also the lead horse and wounded the other lead horse. The horses were frightened, very much so, and then they ran forward about 20 yards when they came to a sudden stop. At the same time, Loring fell off the stage, and so did the other passenger. And in that same moment, the Indians fired the second volley from 3 sides now, both sides of the stage and the rear, not more than 4 or 5 yards away, killing Mr. Sholholm, one of the inside passengers, wounding then Miss Shepherd, myself, and Mr. Salmon. It was not looking good. The latter one was mortally wounded. That would be Mr. Salmon, and he fell out of the stage. He crawled away, but he was finally captured by the Indians, scalped, and otherwise mutilated. The only one not then wounded was Mr. Hammett of Lieutenant Wheeler's party, but he and myself commenced immediate firing. We shot. Each one of us fired 6 shots. No more ammunition. I paused firing. The Indians then disappeared behind the bushes. They retreated. For what a terrible spectacle it was to see 6 dead bodies in plain sight. Loring was laying right under my eyes, not yet dead, but suffering apparently terribly. He was shot through the left temple and his right eye and his lungs. He suffered for about 4 minutes, but I was positive that he died before I made my escape. Knowing that it would be useless to attempt to escape until the Indians would come back and plunder the stage, I remained perfectly quiet, having ascertained that Miss Shepherd was yet alive but badly wounded. She succeeded in getting a loaded revolver from one of the killed passengers, which she gave to me. I then told her to keep cool and to be ready to run as soon as I would be giving the signal. Well, in about 6 minutes, a terrible suspense, I saw the Indians slowly creeping back. They were coming back towards the stage. I counted and saw plainly 15 Indians, all dressed in blue soldiers' trousers. When they came within 5 yards of the stage, I jumped up, yelled, and fired at them. The woman at the same time, she also yelled, and we succeeded in driving them off for the time being. Before I left the stage, I cried out as loud as I possibly could if anyone was yet alive, but only Mr. Adams answered, and he was mortally wounded. He could not even move his hand or feet. I had to leave him to his fate. He was afterward found with his throat cut and otherwise mutilated. The Indians afterward followed me for about 5 miles, and I had a running fight with them until I fell in with the buckboard. I had to carry the wounded woman for over 2 miles on my left arm. I myself received a shot through the right armpit coming out on the shoulder and 2 shots in my back. The woman also had 3 shots. One to her was dangerous. How I could escape with my life and be able to save the life of Miss Shepherd is more than I can account for. That I left my mark with the Indians, there is no doubt, because 2 of the Indians died from gunshot wounds at Camp Date Creek Reservation. But the commanding officer there refused to have the thing investigated for fear he would find sufficient evidence that they were his pets, that is, Camp Date Creek Indians. No, he wouldn't turn them in. There is no doubt whatever that the outrage was committed by them, the Date Creek Indians, those so-called friendly Indians who Uncle Sam feeds. Now, after the news reached Wickenburg, we were brought to Wickenburg after 16 hours of terrible suffering and agony. I stopped at the place of the attack, closed the eyes of all my poor traveling companions. Loring, poor boy, he was not mutilated, but looked calm and peaceful, accepting his fearful wound through the head. He wore soldier's clothing. His hat is in my possession now. If you wish, you can have it. Loring and 4 of his companions in fate were decently buried the next day, Monday, November 8th, 1877, in very nice coffins. I saw them buried. The other man who got scalped was buried on the road. Mr. Sexton of the Vulture Mine at Wickenburg, he attended the funeral. Rest assured that our friend Loring had a decent funeral. Peace be with his ashes. I forwarded everything belonging to Loring to Lieutenant Wheeler, excepting his hat. As I said, you can have it, there are 4 bullet holes through the same. I know I lost everything but my life. The Indians got to a certain knowledge about $25,000, $9,000 belonging to me and Miss Shepard. The commanding officer, Captain O'Byrne, 25 infantry not only allowed the Indians to go unpunished, but also refused me, Miss Shepard, and 2 surviving cripples shelter. Yes, sir. He ordered us off the reservation, and I wish to heaven you would publish this piece of inhumanity in your New Year's paper. Please show this letter to Mr. Loring, Boston, Massachusetts, who wrote to me on the same day you did. I am, sir, very truly yours, William Kruger, Chief Clerk to Captain C.W. Foster, ASM, United States Army, Ehrenberg, Arizona Territory. Well, we are at the massacre site. We are here. This massacre site has been kept up by a local club here out of Wickenburg. And the graves and monuments that we're going to look at here are kept up by them, which is fantastic. They say that the bodies were buried where they fell, but as you can see from the testimony, not so. Maybe there's one here. Nobody knows. They were brought back to Wickenburg, buried, then they were disinterred, then they were reinterred. There's no records, no good records of most. They even say they came back and buried some or all or one of them back here. No records, so that's going to be lost to the sands of time unless somebody wants to do a ground penetrating radar, which is not necessary. It's really, well, it's really about just the memorial to this event. So interesting. Let's take a look at what we have. So the first thing we have here is a small grouping of monuments. And this appears just to be what was maybe a cross. Hard to say. But again, you stand here, this is right at the base of the hill. And as you can see, what I just walked off is not the wash. The wash is right there. So that's only about 20, 30 yards. And as it goes to the left, it converges with this, all of this here. So you can, you know, you just try to imagine right here in the Stagecoach, looking up this hill with all these attackers coming down with rifles. Wow, that must have been horrible. It's another monument, unmarked. Cast iron cross or crucifix. It's really just a cross and candle holder with money. That's what you do. You bring money or stones. That's a sign of respect. It's nice that it's still there. I saw a little sign over here. I walked past this. Okay, so this just says the November 5th, 1871 at 10 a.m. Yeah, the Concord style stagecoach. 4 horses. 8 miles per hour. And they were on a route. This is the special routes. I see some signs down there. I see another sign here. Let's zigzag. So these are more signs that just tell what happened. 3 horses wounded, 4th died. 26 rounds were fired into the coach. 26 bullet holes. I'm guessing right about here, this is where the coach, well, right down here in the wash. I mean, the wash is not going to change that much. It's not going to relocate. What's this here? Bottle of liquor. Okay, this says William George Salmon, wounded, jumped out, ran, then saving Molly Shepard and William Kruger. Oh, so that's interesting. William George Salmon, that wasn't mentioned in his note. And then what was mentioned is they scalped Salmon, scalping him chin to nap and otherwise mutilating him. That sign's gone. All right, let's go back up to this sign, and then there's some more markers we can look at. So this is kind of a little, just telling what happened. 35 Indians armed with repeating rifles. Oh, you wouldn't stand a chance here. They left moccasin tracks. They were sewn to the upper part of the rawhide straps, giving a clear track as to who was the tribe. Yeah, in this case, I think they're probably right. I think probably right. Peter Hamill was unhurt, suggesting he met his attackers head-on before being killed, scalped, mutilated. And there you see Frederick Loring, Charles Adams, driver, all of that. Adams received 2 wounds to the back. Loring received wounds to his head, we know that. Lance, they got him in the head, upper torso. Unable to flee, they lay here. They lay here all to be mutilated. So again, it's hard to say each of these. I'm sure that some of these right here are really the spots. They probably, when they move the bodies, put a pile of rocks here. So you are looking at the actual ground where it happened. A lot of signs here. A lot of signs. Let's see what this one says. This is the after the escape. Look at all these ants. Boy, if you were to fall down and lay here, these ants would just eat you alive, guys. Let me tell you, don't stand still too long. Let's see here. What's that one? Can't read that sign. And then we have this lonely. I'm guessing that these 2 right here, this is it. We're on ground zero, where these 2 big pile of rocks are. This is where they fell. Right here. Not the original wood, but it could be. Doubt it. Oh, there it is, guys. Just imagine being all alone here. There's no way anyone's going to help you. Well, like I said, poor Molly Shepard. No picture, no grave. She is lost to the sands of time. Very brave woman. There's a lot of information which I'm going to put here that tells about where the bodies were interred and what little that I can find on it. But like I said, there's not much on this, so I'll put it in the description box below if you want to read. And there's a ray of hope, like I was hinting at the beginning, for Molly. They say she was actually spotted in San Francisco with Kruger, spending all the money. Don't believe that, you know, to sell a book again, but hey, maybe. What do you guys think? Think Molly made it? Anyway, thanks for coming on this exciting trip. I am going to get back in the machine and get back and just enjoy the ride and the scenery. This is a wonderful place to visit. I recommend, if anyone wants to come out here, to check it out. So, with that, I will conclude the story. Be safe.